Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to round 4 of BSL Hasuleague Season 20. As you can see on the right hand side, those are the replays I have available. What we've been doing up to this stage, which has not been super obvious, is we've been kind of going from the bottom up to get the best games towards the end of the bracket. That is what we're going to be doing here. So we're going to start off with White versus Tom. White and Tom kind of on the border right here. Yui, Gosifer, they've already made it. They've already made it into the next round. The question is the jockeying for position, whether in stage 1, stage 2, Fisheye, New Ocean Wizard, and Kiko very likely going to try to jockey. Well, actually everybody with the 2 series wins going to jockey it off for who can get the first bye in round 1. So 4 of these guys essentially are going to be able to skip the first part of the next round, and then everybody else is going to be fighting it out, and it's just best of from that stage on. I'll show you guys that bracket when it comes to it, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and switch up and go ahead and dive into Tom versus White. I'm gonna have to admit, I'm not used to doing the part of my brain is less good at doing the scene switching, all that sort of stuff while commentating simultaneously. Commentating Brood War, I'm a little bit more into it, but having to remember, like, okay, what button do I press and how much do I need to say about the, maybe I should have written a script to figure it out. Anyway, White starting in the bottom left hand corner as the White Protoss. Predictably, upper left hand corner, we got Tom starting as the blue Zerg. This is on Radeon. And between these guys, we'll see how it works out. White, I'm a little bit shocked to see White in the 1 and 2 position, to be honest. Tom's thrown a lot of players off, mostly with his more passive macro style. I have a feeling, just knowing White's playstyle, that White will be able to react to it. What I find interesting is I'm wondering if Tom's style of playing a little bit more passive macro, if that would be as successful in a different era. I feel like right now, where a lot of Protoss players are fearing Hydralisk wow, can't talk all of a sudden. Fearing Hydralisk busts. I had trouble spitting that out for some reason. Where they've been fearing Hydralisk busts, that has allowed Macro Zerg to have kind of a, I don't want to say a renaissance, but kind of a stats boost over where it might be otherwise. And it looks like we are going to see a Forge opener here, by the way, from White. White opting for a more macro style. Is Tom going to go for the 12th hatch in the midst of this? It looks like he is sending the drone to the lower location. He's still sitting on 9 drones, or a 9 hatch. Okay, we got additional drones out. So actually going for an 11 hatch, interestingly enough, upper left-hand corner. So going for the more macro play. A lot of Zerg have been going, at least last week, it felt like every Zerg I was watching, regardless of location, it was just nothing but, absolutely nothing but overpools, overpool. But in this series, it looks like we are actually finally seeing variation, and we saw a little bit of variation from Yui at the previous match, but I almost expect that out of Yui because he's got very flexible play, and he was also going up against New Ocean, who was tossing out 2 hatch plays. Anyway, White finding nothing bottom right hand corner. Drone is going to make it underneath. It's going to be able to see that initial cannon being constructed, might be able to dive and get a disruption if it hurries up. It looks like the probe is distracted and holding it. I think White initially is thinking, oh, I'll attack and then recognized, oh, I better get that down before I run into additional trouble. Unfortunately for White, he's going to see this Overlord top right, and granted, he might be able to create a bit of a mental stick and go like, okay, Overlord's top right corner. If later in this match I send a Corsair there, I'm very likely to find an Overlord. But in the meantime, he is going to get absolutely last scout. So not going to recognize that, and he actually, so he's going for a gateway rather than a second cannon, a little bit presumptively, but he also was not able to halt Tom getting that 3rd hatchery up effectively with 0 harassment from anything up to this stage. And all the Zerg, it looks like several Zerglings being constructed. It looks like just a pair of Zerglings surfacing here, but White able to see what he was looking to see. And let's see how good a job he does keeping this probe alive. I will say, Tom, for going for a more macro-oriented start, I feel like 4 Zerglings are a little bit more appropriate to try to give a little bit more harassment to the initial probe. And keep in mind, I guess he saw the can first, so it is likely that he's thinking, okay, I can skip some Zerglings here to start to get a little bit more of an economic boost, which is fine. But I do feel like leaving the thing that has really, again, helped Zerg out a lot is the ambiguity of whether you're going for a Hydralisk play or not. And right now, with this probe having very little pressure, he's already able to confirm that layer, which gives a huge go-ahead from White to go ahead and to get the cybernetics core down a little faster, or do a whole bunch, cut a lot of corners. Effectively, he knows that there's not going to be a Hydralisk bust very likely, unless there is some major tricksterism, which I don't think he's just seeing nothing but droning at this stage. So he knows effectively he can just proceed. And honestly, if he wants to, what he might do in the midst of this, although looking at Lair, I wouldn't skip Stargate, what he might do in the midst of this is push tech a little bit harder, a little bit faster. We'll see if White does in fact go for an adjustment along those lines. He's getting that second assimilator up in reaction, which I'm not surprised at all. Zergling speed, by the way, coming online. We finally see 2 additional Zerglings to get a full pair of 6 around on the map. We've got a single Zergling camping there out front to see if any Zealots are making their way forward. But you can see this probe, yeah, is just able to get a full view of the saturation here at the natural expansion. The Zergling's trying to blockade the front to not provide any information, but the Spire already built, and at this stage I'm not sure that it really matters. 2 Zealots initially walking out and then making their way back mid-map, I think recognizing they weren't going to be, well, they might have been able to get some damage done. Did that force any, I don't think that even forced any Zerglings out. So hatchery dropping as well. I think White missing potentially an opportunity to, if he had moved into this 9 o'clock location, he would have gotten at least 2 drones or halted a decent amount of mining there. But he wasn't able to force out Lings, so Tom, continuing kind of his macro style, that probe finally taken out around the 530 mark, which is very, very deep into this build. First Corsair on its way. It looks like it's making out, so Zergling has spotted the first Corsair, by the way. Looks like he's just holding out in the front, and is now going to make his way back across. We are seeing that 5th hatchery drop along the edge. We'll be able to confirm things, but he is going to have to get out of dodge fairly quickly. As far as a follow-up, and it looks like that Overlord who was top right is making his way back across. And if he's on top of it, I think he might be able to kill this. So never mind, he built the Scourge at the main, so he queued up the Scourge in the main. I feel like if he had queued up the Scourge along the 9 o'clock hatchery, he might have been able to catch this Corsair, because keep in mind, so there the Overlord is complete, and here the Scourge are popping out, and the Corsair is going in to confirm. And the Scourge, in the meantime, are going opposite direction. By the way, Tom briefly supply blocked in the midst of this. He does have an evolution chamber down with +1 weapons and a Hydralisk den in the midst of this. White, seeing the information he was looking for, going to go ahead and draw back. We do see Citadel of Doom without Lake Speed in the midst of this. Templar Archives dropping, and we do have +1 weapons, so it looks like it is going to be Dark Templar in the interim. And this might work to Tom's advantage, considering he's been more macro-oriented. He doesn't have a great SimCity here at the natural expansion. He's got an okay, well, kind of a not much of a SimCity here at the 9 o'clock either. But what he has been pretty solid about is making sure he's got a decent amount of troops. 1 Scourge, by the way, picked off there. Nice job on White. And I think the Scourge, have the Scourge spotted? I'm not sure that the Scourge has spotted that +1 weapons upgrade in the midst of this as well. So that's going to get taken out. It was at least able to see the gateway, found the Templar Archives. So Tom now, and he's already got Overlord speed queued up, so recognizes he's going to have a good amount of Hydralisks here. And the Corsairs, one of them took a hit, it looks like, with some Scourge, moving their way up to get some damage done. This is before +1 weapons is complete, but just getting a little bit of a hit and checking out the situation. But we've got a good amount of Hydralisk. Oh, good amount. White taking a lot of damage. Loses a Corsair right there. Got to keep the Corsair active, and unfortunately, I think we see this many Hydralisk on the ground. It is enough to go. It's enough to say go ahead, back out, and don't commit it unless you either have a larger number, or you're catching Overlord kind of vacantly out in the field. This Overlord, for example, is exposed, and maybe run out a Dark Templar at a kind of forward spot. I think this is the bit I feel like that Zerg are missing these days. Is if you go Templar Archives, it looks like the High Templar are going to skip, but have a Zealot or something out on the map, like even somewhere right here, something to forward scout that's not your Corsairs, so you know when a large troop of like Hydralisks are crashing down at your natural expansion. You're seeing a Zergling here, but this is effectively getting missed, and you don't know if any Scourge are coming along the way, you don't know if any Needles coming on the way, and now I don't know, we're gonna have 3 cannons, but not a lot of cannons to try to defend this. So it's gonna come down to Zealot and some decent Psystorm, and we're only gonna have, it looks like 2 Psystorm. So 1 Psystorm, that just absolutely blanketing the Hydralisks, however. The Scourge making their way up top right, checking. It looks like White just trying to confirm that there's not an additional base somewhere out in the map. But White has taken significant damage on at least 2 of the cannons. Tom lucky he didn't end up losing additional Hydralisks because there was another storm in the bank. But now moving up to go ahead and check. Backing off the Hydralisks again in place. And Tom at a pretty healthy 43 workers. He's behind on supply, but this is kind of the normal supply you expect. And keep in mind, there was very early Templar tech and 2 Side Storms have been expended. So we're going to have 3 High Templar that are going to be banking a lot of Side Storm. And that should be a pretty sizable defensive fleet to move out. Lurker tech upgrading in the meantime for Tom. It looks like he wants to try to transition this into potentially a contained sort of situation. +1 weapons, I believe, is finished on these Corsair. But a 5th Corsair has not joined their fleet. So a little bit odd because usually you will see the 5th Corsair amongst, and that's kind of the magic number versus Scourge in particular. At a distance, but that also helps pick out the overlords a little bit faster. Gateway Flood in the midst of this here. For White, he's going to go ahead and clear out the front and start making his way out on the map. He does not have a robotics down as of yet. He does have a lot of Side Storm just in case there were lurkers here out in the field, and making his way to go ahead and clear up that 3rd. Drones are flooding in mass, it looks like. So sorry, those are Hydralisks alongside. But Tom already taking claim in top right, which has been his MO up to this stage, is just play very, very aggressive macro. In fact, he's ahead in workers right this second. A few Scourge making their way up. They have been spotted. That should be easy pickings as long as there's the group attack here. You're able to wipe them out fairly easily. A probe is in the midst trying to get past that army to go ahead and drop it, but Tom already dropping 2 additional hatcheries top right. Is he making his way towards... Is not making his way towards Hive Tech as of yet, but he's got all sorts of hatcheries. Scourge additionally being picked off, and it looks like the Hydralisks are going to have to back off from the main. Sidestorm catching 2 Hydralisks, but not a lot else. A little bit of a waste of that Sidestorm. But White has got that 3rd up and running. He's sitting back, going to go ahead and macro. He's actually got a 15 supply lead, which is about where he wants to be at. Keeping his army shelved in both locations, just in case. And yeah, you got that additional macro starting to kick in for Tom. And this is about the stage where Tom can often take over these matches because he's got the additional bases, he's got a lot of drones, he's got the saturation, he's got lurkers out in the field and well planted. He's starting to feel a little bit safe where, okay, these bases, particularly this base, potentially going to be hard to breach across this ramp line. So maybe we start hitting the gas a little bit and start investing heavily into units. And you see 12 Hydralisks queued up. So you're going to see that supply shoot up very, very rapidly. And once that supply starts tilting and you have that +2 and not the, well, okay, +2 just about to hit, and you don't have the equivalent weapons upgrades on White side of the map, that's when the massive amount of Hydralisks that come in wave can be very, very punishing. Although this army kind of walking into that attack force, now turning and attacking. Oh, 1 High Templar just about picked off, but able to skirt and escape. No lurkers top right, by the way. 12 o'clock location is instead being examined by White to go ahead and clear out. I think that was where he was expecting the next base. We have several Hydralisks that are piling up into that top right-hand base. Tom actually in the red. He was briefly making his way up to Hive Tech, but he canceled that and instead has opted for the additional range upgrade. Do we have a second forge that was dropped? This forge is actually quiet here from White, and that potentially is going to be a mistake. That actually might allow Tom to have more legs than would it be otherwise. Never mind. +2 weapons, +1. There's got to be a second forge out there. +2 weapon, +1 armor all of a sudden. White with the upgrade advantage. I just missed it right as it was coming. Where's that second forge? It's got to be around here. There it is. Second forge at the natural. So Tom, it's usually about even on upgrades here. He doesn't have enough. He hasn't been able to keep the army cohesive enough to pick off the High Templar. The Corsair finding top right, which should be a trigger for White to go ahead and expand. It looks like he is going to go ahead and grab the 6 o'clock location. And this isn't well saturated yet. He loses another 2 Corsair in the midst of this, by the way. We have a probe making its way bottom right. A single Zergling is there to go ahead and stymie. And all sorts of, yeah, you can see Tom just playing mostly defensively on his way to Hive Tech. About 4/5, we'll call it, the way there. That's a little bit short, but making his way up to the next stage. And White just happy to continue to macro. He's going to keep this army planted mid-map. This has actually worked out well for him because we haven't seen... looks like a single Zergling, by the way, bottom right. These two Overlords probably going to get picked off. The probe actually seeing the Zergling top right and sneaking back down to drop the Nexus at the natural. Single Zealot, if it makes its way there, will be in a good situation. But yeah, Tom just playing very, very defensively, just dropping all sorts of Sunken Colonies top right. Supply blocked again because of the double Overlord loss in the bottom right-hand corner. But is making his way up towards a pretty impressive... Yeah, he's closing the gap pretty rapidly as far as the raw army count. The thing is we do have a lot of Psystorm in the midst of this, and right now Tom's engagements have not been swarming. So I could see a world where White still pulls this out, but right now it's looking more even than usual, and Defiler Mound is on the way. So both players really opting to just play a huge macro game. Flood of cannons here bottom right. Now Tom's starting to make his way out onto the map. A lot of lurkers morphing somewhere out on the map, I'm gonna guess, to help defend. Yeah, help defend top right. So he's got a large army in position. White is out of position. He's very mid-map, but this is a fairly defensible location, with especially with High Templar, to just storm this gap as units start flooding in. It's not the best. It's kind of the tempting engagement point to run across, but it can oftentimes be... Well, I almost want to name this like Radion's Folly or something like that, because it's just it is a location where, yeah, you can attack across it, but you can see where it just lines your units up for just obliterating Psystorms. Where are the additional Psystorms there? Finally, a second Psystorm dropped. And actually, where I thought that was going to be a much easier defense for White because of a lacking second attack and a secondary attack from Tom bottom right, White all of a sudden scrambling to defend both locations. A bulk of the army moving to the bottom right, and the army that was staging at the natural moving up. So no Nexus kills, but a lot of cannons have in fact been wiped out. Tom donating a large portion of his army though in the midst of it, so no army, so he's gonna have to remacro fairly rapidly. He did pick off about 10 workers or so. Reaver actually starting in production for White, recognizing this might be a longer stage match. White looking for a counterattack to top right. Lurkers not yet burrowed in top right. And there is an opportunity with some observer sniping for Tom to really lock this down, because I haven't seen a lot of observers active out on the map. We have one kind of at the lower location right this second. Overlord's being pushed back at the 9 o'clock in the meantime, but we have observers that are making their way top right. I don't see any Hydralisks here or any Scourge to pick that off, and this is a deep lurker field, however. We do have a Nidus Canal, which will give some response time. Where's the additional Nidus, though? Looking for okay, there's the Nidus in between the natural and the third base. So moving up, getting sliced pretty heavily by that lurker line. We also have transport, by the way, upgrading, and that could be an extra bonus piece of tech. Tom getting flanked a bit, expended a lot of Psystorm on some Zerglings, the lurkers scrambling to get in position. White's Psystorms haven't been fantastic right here, but it looks like he's still going to be able to clean a lot of this up. Observers scrambling forward. More units making their way across. White's pretty deep, and it's very unlikely he's going to be able to escape with all this. Some beautiful Psystorms right there, filling out the Zerglings that were streaming across. And he might have saved this army, honestly. I didn't think he was going to get out of this. Between the Zerglings coming from the north and from the south, he still might bleed some Dragoons on this retreat, but dropping some additional Psystorms, and just right on the edge of his army to clear a lot of this out. So lost some troops, but got pretty good trades. It looks like Tom has hit that overwhelming macro stage, though, and redropping and just obliterating everything. This is where Tom really starts to sail. 5 tech, everything in place. High Templar starting to get picked off. White no longer has map control. There's a Zergling staring off against a probe bottom right. And Tom can maybe grab 9 o'clock, or sorry, the 3 o'clock base if he wants. We do have some Reavers inside shuttles. I think this is mostly to provide latent defense around the map. I don't think these are meant to be aggressive. It is possible that they'll cycle through. These are usually, you'll see storm drops rather than Reaver drops. And potentially we have some waiting on shuttle speed to make that happen. 12 o'clock base being constructed here from Tom. Tom is maxed out. He's got defilers around. Oh, probes getting wiped out as they make their way out on the map. Nice little trap there from Tom. and some zealots donating, a zealot donating its life as well. The observer's a little bit scattered about. Looks like a few units being drawn bottom right. So white, not where he wants to be for late game worker count. His main's mined out, his natural expansion's mined out. He does need to transfer those probes to an active base, but he's still sitting at 3 base, which is not the worst. And his upgrades are looking pretty strong. He's got level 3 weapons, level 2 armor. Moving with the Reavers out onto the map, that will definitely help breach the Bridge of Folly that direction. But right now, Tom absolutely surrounding it on all corners. Great side storms, though, with this army strung out. Really shredding Tom's army. And you have more, you can see Tom just really enjoying the Sauron Zerg style. More Zerglings flooding out onto the map to a mid-game rally to engage this force, maybe take out the High Templar. But that's the first Side Storm whiff I think I've seen, but White able to follow it up with some additional Side Storm to clear those Zerglings out. So White really winning a lot of these battles, but a counterattack from Tom now towards the 9 o'clock. And a lot of that Side Storm was expended. Do we have a Defiler in the midst of this? No Defiler in the midst of this, though. More Side Storm to close that gap. As soon as the Reavers get here, I expect this to be nigh impenetrable. But that is going to draw White into more of a defensive long-term stance. Some High Templar getting separated from the army. They're going to get wiped out. And the Reavers finally dropping, but dropping right on top of the Zergling, so one of them immediately getting picked off. A few additional Zergling not getting the memo that they need to attack forward, which is always frustrating. A couple Overlords going to lose their life mid-map as well. So just really quick, if you look at the map, this is all of Tom's vision. This is White's vision right here, and you can see map control very much still in Tom's favor, even though he's got to hit a macro cycle to get right back on the map here. He's got Defilers out someplace, but not where he needs them right this second. He needs to get the bulk of his army here, and this is honestly a better engagement point for White with the Reavers on the short ground. He doesn't have High Templar to really make this sale, but the Reavers, as long as they can get a little bit of protection and scoop up in those shuttles and back out, and as long as he doesn't get trapped from behind, you can see White very concerned about that, trying to walk some troops out and make sure they're able to retreat more on his side of the map. In the midst of this, loses a Dragoon as a straggler. We do have, keep in mind, we do have potential Overlord drop in the midst of this. A few additional Scourge have been produced across the map. Tom reinforcing bottom right. I'm wondering if he's going to start taking some shots at these bases. Tom actually mined out at this third, still active a little bit at that natural, and is effectively running everything top right hand quadrant, is just starting to mine at the 3 o'clock base. Despite White having less map control and fewer workers overall, he's been trading fantastically and has really been depleting Tom's bank. Tom's been macroing very well, but at the same time, White still maintains supply advantage throughout all of this, primarily through just some of these fantastic engagements. A few drones finally getting caught mid-map. Looks like White starting to bear down at the natural expansion, just dropping the lurkers last second. This might be an overwhelming attack force, however. A lot of troops drawing back. Where's the Defiler as well? Okay, we do have the Defilers on point. Good plague across a good portion of that army. But I think this is an overwhelming attack force from White, and this is Tom's rally. So starting to breach towards that natural expansion. One thing is, even if he wipes out a lot of this tech top left, if Tom is fast about it, he can redrop a lot top right and still have large portions of the map to work with. Dragoons are weakened by the plague. 14 kills on that Dragoon, holy cow. So that is going to get cleared out. But at the end of this army reset, it looks like Tom is going to end up with the advantage overall. I thought White was going to be able to barrel through, but Tom just having enormous amounts of macro and all of these bases running, quickly able to resupply, and now active out on the map, continuing to reinforce bottom right. A shuttle with some Reavers making their way across. I think he wants to stymie something. We don't have these creep colonies adjusted as of yet. This has gone through the lines. Tom not responding. We have some Scourge here. The Scourge going to land. Okay, one Scourge. Okay, too late on this. The Scourge trailing, and Hydralis making the way up. This doesn't look sufficient unless that Scourge lands. Scourge does take out the shuttle, but the Reavers still land. Those Hydralisks and Zerglings trying to get damage done. The drones still remain untouched though, and as I say that, 2 drones drop. But pretty well cleaned up by Tom, honestly. Not a lot of damage done, considering the punch of that attack force. A cannon cleaning up that Zergling, to try to clean up that Zergling, bottom right, by the way. Tom with a massive army that was staged out across that edge. Good Psystorm again from White. And that Psystorm really wiping the floor with that army, but you can see the macro re-engaging from Tom. He's swarming this army, and I don't think this is going to be able to make it the way home, and this is very costly late. All of a sudden, White supply dropping, and he's going to call GG right there, recognizing that Tom effectively just had a stranglehold, and despite trading very well, Tom's macro engine was just too strong. So that'll be game 1 to Tom. Gonna move into game 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.